15,000 and add it to the existing captive population. So say this year is 70,000, next year is 85,000, the year after 100,000, the year after until the 10th year there will be easily 240,000 captive horses. Okay, 240 and 20,000. Now working it up to dollars, 220,000 times 2,000 per horse makes $440 million for that year. Instead of this year, $140 million. You think that the Congress is going to write BLM a blank check of $440 million just to keep, just to warehouse a bunch of horses pointlessly, just because there's nowhere else for them to go. So that possibly is the current situation. The danger, the great danger that I don't think Congress itself sees, because I think that the Congress people, just like a very poor chess player, looks just one step ahead. Not 3 steps ahead, 3 steps ahead that are required to win a chess game. They just don't look the next step and the next. And I'm telling them, if you go 2 steps ahead in your thinking, you're going to have to pay BLM almost $500 million every year just to lock up these horses. Now, the question now is, what happens if Congress wouldn't give the BLM that money? The BLM now has $220,000 in their holding facilities. If the Congress is saying, that is absolutely ridiculous, we can't spend that kind of money on something so pointless, and so what's going to happen? They put $220,000 of, horses on hand that they have no money to feed. What do you think is going to happen? What guess?
They'll kill them.
Slaughter, huh? Yep. It's either starvation or slaughter, but starvation takes so long, people
they
just...
They have value.
That's right. So, yes.
Don't you agree that a lot of horses are already being slaughtered?
Oh, yeah.
Get out through pipelines like that place
Yeah.
in Texas with.
Well, yeah,
It's
that's...
like 100 waiting for slaughter.
Yeah, that happens. That happens, and that can be factored in. And but I mean, all these are covert. I don't think that it's going, happening in tens of thousands or a couple of 100,000 horses in that pipeline. It does happen. So, so now, how do we solve this problem? That's exactly the question I want you to ask. So I'm going to answer you immediately, since I have the answer ready. And that is, instead of trying to compress the horse population down to 27,000, I'm going to raise the AML up to 170,000 from 27. So that it be 1,000 or 160,000, let's say, because the present population is 150,000. If we set the AML up to 160,000, that is 10,000 higher than the current population. So if the maximum allowed population is higher than the actual population, what is the excuse to round them up?
I'm not following you. Say that again?
Yeah.
Okay, right now, the current BLM policy is 10 years to AML, and that is to cut down the current population down to the abysmally low AML set by the BLM in 1971, right? They set the maximum by 27,000.
Right.
Now we have 80,000. They want to compress it back down to 27,000 and scoop all these, put them into the holding pens. So the holding pens population gets bigger and bigger, and that's how, if the Congress allows this trajectory to carry on for a few more years, it's going to get out of control, and the problem becomes even bigger. So my solution is to raise the maximum allowed above the current existing population. Instead of then try to force it down to 27, we have about 10,000 headroom between the new limit and the existing population, which is lower than that. I deliberately set it about 10,000 higher so that there is some room for it to fluctuate.
How will that appease BLM and all the people that want to get rid of them when we increase the population? I'm not following.
How are you going to do that? How are you going to make BLM change that?
Congress is going to force them because unless you change this into this workable solution, we're not going to give you any money.
Okay, so we work on Congress.
Congress is the controlling body of the BLM. Congress is appropriation committee. That is Congress's.
Congress is, but then they pass these laws that are not acknowledged or followed through with BLM, as we're witnessing right here and now today. So we still get down to the bottom line that the laws aren't being followed, and you're trying to increase the population. I don't know how we're going to win that.
Well, we have to convince Congress that unless you get BLM to change its ways, you are going to be facing a $440 million,
Yeah.
$440 million
Yeah.
Yeah.
shortfall.
What has to happen is our democracy has to become a true democracy of the citizens rather than a corpocracy and plutocracy of the rich and powerful. We have to, they have to respect the general public, because this was a general public law for a quality of life issue.
Wait a minute, that gentleman has
And it also relates to combating global warming and restoring ecosystems, which are so vital today. So we have to change our values,
Great.
but not
Excuse me.
just the
You're
same
going
old,
to
the
stay on
same
point.
old.
You're
So,
going to stay on point.
well, I am staying on point. Yeah, that's the exact point of the thing.
Sir, I just want to say, I think you have a good long-term solution, but maybe a short-term solution could be if we have someone on the inside, maybe they could open up the pens where they're being stored. And because if they're going to play dirty, I think we have to maybe too. And if they open up the floodgates, then it'll at least buy us a little
Yeah,
time.
well, something,
They'll catch them again.
Yeah. Now, Anthony had a really good idea that I discussed with him yesterday, and that is where they're putting these long-term pastures is actually much more suitable
I'm getting
for
there. I'm
cattle and
I'm
sheep
getting to that point,
than
Craig.
these arid western areas, whereas the horse and burros are much more suitable here, so they can go over there.
And do grazing.
Remember?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'm getting to that point, but not
Yeah.
yet.
Well, I didn't want you to forget that. 'cause
No,
that's a really
I would
crucial
not
point.
forget that point
Yeah.
because I have to address the ranches.
Yeah.
So, okay, but Craig is giving you a hint of what it is, right?
Okay.
So, so we will. That's part of the reasons why I'm here to talk to the U.S. general citizens, the public, because if one of you would see the value of this plan, you can write to your own Congress people. So everybody has a Congress person, and new laws are usually started in the House of Reps, not the Senate. So you go and lobby your own Congress people, your own Congressperson, and get him to represent you when it comes to presenting a new bill, or just to get your idea incorporated into their thinking. Right now, they're just thinking what's one step ahead, one step ahead. That's about it. So I get your point, sir. I might address it if there's enough time. But you have a question, do you say?
My point was, I guess what you're getting to is let them loose, for God's sake. And my question, though, is, and I asked Craig this one too, he said I could ask you. The thing that freaks out the BLM the most is if in both of your plans, and Craig knows, reserve design is near and dear to my heart as well, right? Okay, but if we are saying in his plan or your plan that we want to reduce the number of herds of cattle, they're going to freak out on us.
Well, but
Why can't we, there are how many millions of acres of
Yeah,
public
that's what I
land?
want to know.
Why
There's
can't
300 million.
300 million acres
All
of
the-
public
all the
land?
different-
Isn't there enough land for both all the cattle they want and all of our horses?
Yes, there is.
So why can't we find
Well,
that
we can
compromise?
try that, but if
Well,
it's,
those areas in the Midwest are more productive. They have more water and they have deeper
Mhm.
soils. So they're more appropriate for livestock production than these
Put 'em
western
there, then.
areas. Yeah, so they require less acreage per cow or.
What's the name of that ecologist up in
Okay.
Washington State?
excuse me,
I'm sorry,
my
go
speech is
ahead.
not finished yet, let me finish, okay, please?
Go ahead.
Now, if we succeed in getting Congress to getting, I mean, as I'm leaping ahead a couple of steps, if I can succeed in getting you guys excited about this plan, you can then go to your Congress people will bring it to Congress, Congress will debate about it. They may even invite me and Craig to serve as a character, as a, I was going to say character, because as a scientific, expert. I'm a Canadian, so I would need to be invited by the Congress. I also cannot directly go and lobby U.S. politicians. So that's why I'm also talking to you too, because you're American. You have rights here. You have the rights to lobby your representatives. And if you're not a lobbyist, you can also go to lobbyists to get them to do it for you.
So you want us to go to Congress and tell them we want more horses, we want 180,000 horses free on the land. Is that where you're going?
No, we're gonna tell them it's gonna cost them this. It's way.
Yeah, I'm getting to that point, and that point will.
I don't think that's gonna fly.
Okay. All right. Well, listen.
Money.
Well, money, I get it, but
Exactly.
Right.
Now, let me get to this point.
yes.
After all, the horses have been rewilded under the guidelines of Craig's reserve design.
Yeah,
What's happening to the holding facilities? That's costing.
yeah, yeah.
They're empty.
That's the,
So-
Can I
So automatic.
interject?
So once the ALM has the AML has been raised up above the population, roundup will have to stop because there's no reason to round up because the population is not over the AML, and secondly, money. Yep, money is the thing. Now, I asked Craig, how much does it cost to implement his reserve design? He says approximately $50 to $70 million to create his reserve designs. And from his speech, you can see how much needs to be done in order to fit his reserve design, which is the one that is 100% ecologically sound.
Just one time though, and then
And
That's exactly-
I am
So
identified,
what
23
happens
areas.
is once
23 areas.
once the AML has been raised and once Roundup has to stop, what's going to happen to the helicopters? They'll be automatically grounded. We don't have to go and say no helicopters, like a lot of activists. No use of helicopters in Roundup is what they say, but they never say end the Roundup because I don't see them having any idea as to how to do it. So consider this idea. No helicopters automatically save $4 or $5 million a year. We can close all the holding facility now. And it's costing the BLM over $100 million a year. So we're saving Congress and its financial source easily $140 million a year right now. Do you follow me?
Yeah.
Now, Congress, so we dangle this $140 million in front of Congress and say, if you just put down some guidelines and restrictions on the BLM, get them to abide by the law, by the new MARR-DOWNER plan, you have $140 million to work on far more meaningful projects.
Okay.
Far more meaningful. One of the most important things that needs to be done, that's not being done because there's no money, which is all sunk into those holding facilities, is habitat. Well, okay, I'm not going to repeat everything that Craig says to get the idea.
Okay.
Okay, so
Create the sanctuaries.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, and so here's this little trick, because I know that the ranchers wouldn't like that. They wouldn't like it particularly that I'm not even an American. I've been told, why don't you go back to Canada? And I've been saying, and some of the existing wild horse activists say, you're a newcomer and an outsider. You know, back off and learn something by listening to us. Whereas listening to them, what? What kind of solutions have they come up with for decades? I've given them the time to come up with something. I said, here's my plan. I'm going to get it set there. I'm going to give you 3 years to come up with your own plan. If you don't come up with your own plan, this one is it. If anybody can think of any better idea right now, tell me. And I'm very happy to hear it. And if it is better than mine, I will capitulate. Now, so this last 20 minutes, you know, the ranch is going to moan and groan. So if we consider that there was no more virgin land to be developed, and consider that possibly it has been saturated. So if we're going to put 70,000 wild horses back on the range, we will have to remove an equivalent number of cows and goats and sheep. And that is not that bad, because you know it would be about 15% decrease. And so those unlucky ranchers whose cows are going to get kicked out of the public land, what are we going to do for it? Number one, I don't owe them a single cent, because they've been, what, are you familiar with the term welfare rancher? Anybody know?
Yep.
Very briefly, the ranchers grazing on public land are big ranchers. They're not little mom and pop. You know, they're big ranchers, barons, and they're rich. And what does BLM do? Private grazing costs approximately $20 per month per cow,
More than
right?
that.
$22. What does the BLM charge the cattle barons for grazing on public land?
$1.35 per.
$135.
That's exactly right, $1.35.
Cow
Now,
or whole and 5 sheep.
Corruption.
you know, number one, really,
It's
the ranchers
basically a
doesn't have
giveaway.
anything very
Basically
dignified
free.
to say for themselves. Really, they're just a social parasite as far as I know. Judging by the Chinese definition of sacrifice. But I have something sweet for them. I mean, you know, the 70,000 captive horses let out was let out from, not from the you know, stalls and barracks and you know. It is from holding pastures. That's where they dump the horses into in the long term. And since Nevada doesn't have any pastures, they go to Oklahoma, they go to Kansas. Anyway, those agricultural states abutting the wild horse states, they just go to those states with a lot of pastures at BLM, and they just go in there and say, okay, can we leave your pasture, lease your pasture for putting wild horses in here to graze? And so the horses are held in pastures, which are much richer grazing than in the desert. So I'm going to say to them, who are the lucky hunters who who are the lucky ranchers to get their own cattle onto pasture? Wow! I'm sure that most of them will say, okay, put me down on the list and the lottery. You know, so I think the pastures would actually be the rancher's choice, to be honest. If I were a rancher and I've got a cow, you know, pick tiny little leaves among the gravel of the desert. I've been walking around in Nevada. It's nowhere I want to live. I can tell you right now out there. Particularly yesterday, Craig took me on a 6-hour drive and hike in 95 degrees Fahrenheit in the shade where there was no shade. Craig was in pretty good shape. I mean, he was just beating me all to hell. But I was just seeking to sit in the shade of a tiny little bush, and he was way over there. And but he's younger than me. I mean, what? I'll tell you, he's 74 years old. Yeah, and I'm 79.
Yeah.
So,
Have you reached out to anybody in Congress? Where it's just, you go from different states?
well, that's exactly it. I mean, I was saying everybody lives in a certain state in which there are state representatives in the House of Reps. You contact your own. And if you don't do it yourself, well, that's fine. Now, there are several ways of doing it. You can either go to Washington D.C. and walk down, Representative Row and just talk into your representative's office and try to talk to them. But there are many different ways you can contact them in writing, contact them in person. You can actually walk right into their offices, be they residing where you live or in Washington D.C. You can walk right into their office and say, I tried it with one of them, Hillary Clinton back then, and there was a woman in front, and I said, well, I would like to speak to Hillary Clinton. I'm sorry, she's not in, but I will take down the information.
Yeah.
And unfortunately,
I was able to visit between 40 and 50 offices, mainly representatives, but also senators, and talk to some top aides, including representatives and senators. When I was there at the Save Our Wild Horses recent event, which was a big rally on the Capitol Mall and 3 days of conference and lobby day, and I stayed 2 extra days in lobby. And I think it's very, very good. I felt like I was really listened to,
Yeah.
and able to give a lot
you
of
can also
good information.
write it, just write it, email, hard letter, paper letter. If you have a lawyer or something, if you're just walking with your lawyer without any reason, that's fine. I mean, he's a lawyer, probably would get a bad reception. But there are ways definitely of getting to your state.
And then Nikki was at the conference too.
Oh,
so she
sorry.
couldn't make it.
Nikki,
Let me offer you an easier way.
you there? Okay.
I am Nikki Kerr. I was first vice chair at the Douglas County Dams. Now our chair is leaving, so I, love it or don't, am going to be now the chair of the Douglas County Dams. As such, I have access to all of these people whom I coerce to help me out. And we have developed, and Joanne is on it also, what I call our action alert list. I welcome each of you to join the action alert list, wherein I will set forth whatever the current issue is going on now of stopping the helicopters or whatever, okay, getting this bill passed or that. I will send out to the group a shortcut where here, just go to this page on congress.gov and just click in your information. Patricia has done it a number of times for me. And it'll go bing, bang, boom to the appropriate offices, and that's all you have to do. So any one of you are welcome to join that
Where do I sign up?
right here, baby.
Are you talking about our local reps, like Amade, Jack Rosen, and Dina Tiny?
It depends on the issue. Is it a local bill or is it a federal bill? If it's a federal bill, then it will go, through Jackie Rosen's office, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. If not, unfortunately, we happen to live in Amadee's area, so right? But it'll go to the appropriate place, believe me, and if you don't like it, do your own. But I'm just offering an easy way.
Central community type thing going on, if you know something about that, I can see where getting a hold of you and getting I call every day. I call the White House
Okay.
every day.
Well,
I
you're,
want the president
you're
to
more into it
understand
than
why
I
is it-
am,
Why is
then.
the BLM being investigated
yeah.
for the horses?
But we have written, and I have written letters to Biden, letters to, you know, all of the congressmen. And as
And the
Craig knows, I
committees.
developed for him this list of with
Yeah,
all the
it's very
ones to go
helpful.
to. And, you know, I'm just offering this as a service that you are welcome to join. That's all I'm saying.
Smart, it's smart.
That's great.
Because we get more people involved, and everybody wants to say, what can I do? Well,
Yeah,
number one.
And you don't have to be
your
in Douglas County.
legislature,
We're all
your
together.
Congress. But I would love to hear from Craig on what we can do right here in Nevada, just find a place for these horses. We know of, what, 4 or 5 roundups just in the state of Nevada. Where can we
Yeah.
put these horses? How can we
Well,
present
what
to?
is so lamentable is that they have all their legal areas on the BLM and Forest Service lands, but they're being cheated out of those for reasons which are not honorable. So people have to rise up and say, this is outrageous, and we need to have these animals restored in their rightful legal areas in complete habitats as viable population. Just to not always be pushed around by these bullies, you know. So this is going to take some courage. But remember, that's how you deal with bullies. You stand up to them. So,
We
and
have
there are
a-
some real bullies involved
I
in
feel
what's
like we
happening
need
in
a
the wild horse
plan
and burros,
to
believe me.
tell them, okay, you've
Yeah.
got these horses in Roundup, we don't want any more Roundups.
Yes,
Let these horses go, but
yeah.
designate the
Yeah,
property.
restore them to their right, they'll need like professionals that really can judge where they belong, what's the productive capacity of the forage, what's the water availability, do they have a complete
Okay,
habitat,
so
all those things.
Here's my more direct question. Can you put some boundaries in the state of Nevada that design and rewild the horses that are currently in lockdown?
I could certainly do that as a
Okay.
professional wildlife ecologist that's specialized in these animals.
Wouldn't that be a good way to start? As
Yeah.
we do legislation, and then we've got a plan.
Yeah, now,
Let's
I've
put the horse, let's get
elaborated
them out
a
of the
plan.
corral, save thousands and
Yes.
thousands of dollars to the
I have
taxpayers, and
elaborated a
give them a
plan
plan
in
B.
my reserve design that identifies 23 areas that
Right.
are,
Okay.
that would cover throughout the West where you could
Let's just-
restore the horses.
Let's just concentrate on Nevada. I
Well,
can't get
many, several of them are here.
Okay, okay.
for
Can
the
you
wild
put a
horse and
map
burros.
together? Can you put a map together for us?
Sure.
Am I?
I have a map in my,
It is the
my article.
antagonism. There's all these groups, these special interest groups.
To-
Even the Sierra Club is saying they're trampling all.
yeah, well, remember they have multi-million-dollar donors who require them to do that. And just like in this recent program, The Human Footprint, they bashed the wild horses as being destructive exotics, and it was outrageous, along with the Burmese python. And then recently, there was a Sierra Club magazine article that was outrageous by that lady from Durango. So we gotta fight the good fight.
That's
Yes.
right.
We shouldn't we shouldn't let these people get away with this. And
So
I have
how
written them.
do you counter, I'm a horse person,
Them
that
caucus.
they naturally stay at their equilibrium in these preserves? Because most wild animals
Oh,
don't.
okay.
No, I don't believe that at all.
Okay.
Animals do self-stabilize. The
I
problem is that people are enforcing an artificial system on them and not letting them restore their true balance among the species. So this is the fault of us people, not the animals and the plants.
It was almost.
Because even in area, I'm from South Africa, like the Kruger National Park, which is a huge ecosystem with predators, with various animals. So they still have to cull elephants, they have to take,
Yeah.
because they destroy all the trees there, because they.
Yeah, and that's because people are enforcing a kind of an artificial system on top of nature. They're not letting nature's natural balances take place.
7.
Because this is
Which
what
they
I'm
would.
getting from groups like the Sierra Club, that
I'm the
they
chair of the
multiply
Dutchess
every
County
4
Democratic
years.
Representative.
You know, they
I know
double.
that's not true. This is a big myth that they've concocted. It's part of their agenda
And you're welcome.
to justify what they're doing. And they all say the same thing.
Yeah.
And I work for the BLM, and I know they indoctrinate their employees what to say. Their big emphasis is PR, because they get their millions every year to accomplish the agenda mainly of the public lands ranchers or the hunters of big game. They're favorites. But people like us, we're not their favorites. They
Because
give
they're
us
selling this
money.
to the public. So the public are, the horses are destroying everything.
Yeah, they use like these exaggerated scare tactics.
Yeah.
And they do that in Congress year after year. And then they try and, shut down people who are trying to get them to look objectively and not be so biased. They kind of, that's exposing them for their dishonesty and lack of true objectivity. So that takes a lot of courage, but we have to have courage in this issue,
As I keep telling you.
We have to have courage.
Because the Sierra Club contacted me and asked me if I would want to start an advocacy for the boroughs that just contacted me today. For the
Oh,
horses
yeah.
and hospital and horses, because they don't have anyone doing that, an advocate. And my quandary is, do I try to work with the Sierra Club, or are they so corrupt?
Well, I worked with this Delia Maloney from Colorado to revise the policy of the wild horse and burros to be more positive, because before it was just totally negative. It was dictated by people like Tina Knapp of the Toyota. She hates the wild horse and burro.
Tina Knapp's exactly
She
the
hates
one,
them.
yeah?
And
Okay,
she hates
that's
the
what
whole
I
wild
was-
horse movement, and she's dived them in the back for years. Been very effective at getting this negative view. And she's been like, totally closed-minded. Yeah. So we gotta face this, there's no two ways about it. If you really care about the wild horses and their freedom. So, let's see, here's my
So
card.
do I try work with